Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Ajilam here. Thank you so much for coming around. Thank you so much for the love. I really appreciate you all. If this is your first time of coming across my channel, kindly subscribe and turn on the bell icon so that you get notified whenever I post a new video. So for today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a flower girl dress for a 4-year-old baby girl. So if you're interested, keep on watching. These are the things I'll be using. This is a leftover fabric. I only need all these applique or roses on it. This is my satin and my net and lining. So as usual, I will start with the upper part. So for the upper part, I'll start up with the bodice length. So for this dress, the bodice length is 10 inches plus 1 inch for my seam allowance, making it 11 inches. So this is 11 inches. I'll mark that out to a straight line. For this video, it will have part 2 because I got a request from some of you that I should separate the video, as in the sewing should be separate and the cutting should be separate. So that's what I'm going to do today. So it will be the second part will be coming up. So the shoulder measurement for this is 10 inches as well. So half of that is 5. So I'll mark out 5 here. This is 5. And I'll come down by ½ inch. Okay, so for the neck width, I'll use 2.5 for the neck width. And the neck depth, I'll use 2.25, which is here. Okay, I'll just connect the points together. So after that, I will determine the armhole. Remember I said to get the armhole, you can just use your shoulder measurement divided by 2. But the best way is to measure the girl. Don't assume. So I'll be using 4.5 for the armhole, which is here. Because if I place my tape from this shoulder line, you will see I'll end up having 5 inches, which is half of the shoulder measurement. So I'll be using 4.5 here, and I will insert the shoulder measurement, half of the shoulder measurement, which is 5, and is here. So I will now connect to a straight line. So this is the chest line now. Okay. So to determine the midpoint here, I have 4.5. I'll just fold my tape like this. Okay, and that is the point there. So I'll mark that point, and I'll come in by 3/4 inch, which is here. So now the chest measurement is 23 inches. So 23 divided by 4 is 5.75, which is here. Okay, plus 1 inch for my seam. That is the point there. So I'll connect the line. Okay, so the next thing now is the waist. The waist measurement is 22 inches. Half of that, 22 divided by 4 is 5.5, which is here, plus 1 inch for my seam, and that is the point there. I will now connect them to a straight line before I will now determine the yoke. Remember this dress, as you can see from the thumbnail, there is a yoke inside. Okay, so this is it. So to determine the yoke, remember this is the chest line, but I'll come down by half and I'll mark that line straight, because that is where the nipple falls here. That is where it is. So whatever I'll be measuring out, I'll make sure it will be above this line. If it falls below this line or on this line, the child body will be exposed. So this is where I'll make sure everything comes up. So now for this side, you can decide how deep you want it. That is for the yoke, which is inside. So but for me, I don't want it that deep, so I will use 4 inches for that. And remember, the 4 inches will be here. Okay, that is this point here, 4 inches here. So connecting now, I will start from this point here and I'll connect it. Okay, making sure it's give me the shape that I want. But if you want it deeper, I'm just looking at this, I might come down a bit. Okay, so I'll just come down by half again. Here is very okay. So I'll now use my French curve and connect. Or if you don't want to use your French curve, you can easily use your free hand. Okay, and give it the shape you really want that to be. As you can see the way I am doing mine, so this is very okay for me. That is for the yoke inside. But if you want it deeper, you can also come down a bit, but make sure it doesn't cross this line. So that is how simple it is to draft out the front pattern. Okay, so for the back pattern, I'll be making it an open back. Okay, so before that, let me cut this out. See, this is the way I cut it. I need this pattern like this because I will place it like this on my net and cut out before tracing this out. So I'll be leaving it like this till I finish cutting the net side. So now let me show you how to cut the back side. So for the back side here, I have 11 inches already. So now what I'll do is to remove 1 inch for my zipper allowance. That is all I'll do. And then I'll use the front and place on top this. Okay, so this is 1 inch for my zipper, and I'll connect that to a straight line. Okay, so I'll take this now and I'll pin it on this and just cut it out before I'll continue with the back pattern. Cutting it out, this is what it looks like. So here I'll come up by ½ inch, which is here. Okay, and I'll just connect that to this end, just like this. Okay, so after that now I'll determine how I want the back to be. So for this, I said earlier, I'll be making it an open back. So here I'll mark out, this is 2.5 here. That is where I would like the open back to start. Okay, so this is 2.5 here. Okay, you can determine how big or small you want it, but for this I'll be making it 4 inches, which is very okay for me. You can make it less, you can also make it even up to 5. It's not that bad. So now I will just give this the shape that I want. Okay, if you want a heart shape, you can just go like this. Okay, it's up to you how you really want that. If you want a heart shape, you can just take it like this. Okay, so that is it. So I think I'll be going with this heart shape. Guys, I'm not really good at drawing, so please manage what I am trying to do. Okay, so that is it. I will now cut out that shape. Let me cut this first one out first so that I will know if it's really okay for me, because I don't want it to be too open. Okay, so this is it. This is how it looks at the back. I think I'm really okay with this, so I'll be going with this. So now I'll open it up. This is how I want the back to be. So now I'll just open it up and I'll cut this out as well, because this is no longer needed. So now I'm going to place this on my fabric and cut. After that, I will now show you how to cut the yoke side and the down part as well. So in another video, I will show you the sewing. So let me just cut all these out. Cutting it out on my main fabric, I'll do a little adjustment on this back. Remember, it's a yoke dress and the back also supposed to have yoke. So on this armhole area, I'll come down by 1 inch, which is this point here. So you can use your hand and just mark it to where you want the yoke to be. So for this, I'll just make it a simple straight yoke. Okay, here I'll just come down by half from this point, which is here. Okay, so that is the point there. So I'll just use this and connect that line, that point there, to this point here. Okay, so this side now is the yoke, but when cutting on my fabric, or when you're cutting on your own fabric, make sure you add your ½ inch for your seam allowance here. So I'll just take it this way first and cut it out on the net before I will now demarcate this. I will now use only these parts to cut out on the satin. Look, I'll just cut this out now, and when I'll be cutting it on my main fabric, I'll just add ½ inch for my seam allowance. That is just how, this is what now I'll be using now on the satin for the front, while this is what I'll use for the back. That is for the satin. Okay, this is what I'll be using. Okay, so now I'll take this and place on my satin, and then I'll cut them out, after which I'll now show you how to cut the down parts. Cutting, this is what I have. This is for the front, so this is how it will look after sewing. Okay, this will be on top of this, and it will be like this, while the back on, okay, will just be like this, as you can see. So the next thing to do now is to cut out the down part. So for the down part, this is my satin. Here I have more than 1 yard. It should be 1.5. Okay, so this is, like I said, is 1.5 yards. So I'm going to fold it the same way you fold your fabric when making the half circle. So I'll just fold it that way. So as you can see, I just folded folded it the same way I just explained now. And remember, the waist for this dress is 22 inches plus 1 inch for zipper allowance, that is 23. So I'll divide that by 3.14, which is the formula for half circle like this, and that will give me 7 inches. So I'll mark out that 7 inches from this point here. Okay, so I'm going to mark that till this other end. After that, I'll place my tape on it round to make sure it gives me the 23 inches which I needed for the waist. Okay, so I'll place my tape like this and check to confirm. Alright, this is exactly 23 inches there. So now for the length I'll be using, that is the length for the down part, I'll be using 18 inches on the dot, so that by the time I trim or fold the hem area, it will go in and I'll have 17 or 16 and a half. So this is 18 inches here. I'm going to mark it to the other end and I'll cut it out. After cutting it out, this is what I have. Okay, so now I'm going to mark out on this side. I'll be making it 2 lines. That is where I'll be sewing my net before the waist area, because I'm just working with 5 yards. If you're working with more than that, you can make yours maybe 3 lines before the waist area. Okay, so the first line I'll mark out 5 inches for that, because like I said earlier, I have 5 yards of net. Okay, and this is the only way the net will be enough for what I want to use it for. So I'll mark out these 5 inches down to the other end, while the second one I'll be using is 10 inches. I'll mark that as well to the other side. After that, I'll now cut this measurement out on my net. I hope you understand. I'll just cut out the first, since I used 5 inches. I'll mark out 5 inches on the net and I'll cut it. The second one is 10. I'll mark out 10 from the net and cut, while the last one will be the actual length, which is 18 inches, and I'll just mark that out as well on the net and cut. Here I have my net. Like I explained earlier, I'm going to cut out those inches. Okay, the first one is 5 inches, so I'm going to mark out 5 inches and cut. Then the next one is 10 inches, I'll cut that, and the last two, because the last one I'll be making it double, so I'll just cut out the 18 inches into 2 for the last one. In here I have 1 yard of lining. Okay, after cutting it out, I'll just give it a good press. So I'm going to fold it in a triangle way as well. So this is it after folding it, and I'm going to use the same 7 inches which I used on the satin for this. So I'll mark out 7 inches from that point, and I'll mark it down to this other end. Then for the length of the lining, I'll be making it 16 inches because normal your lining should be shorter than the satin. Okay, so I'll mark out 16 inches. Is very okay. By the time I finish hemming, I'll end up having 15, which is still okay. So I'll mark that out and then I'll cut it. For my hard net, I'll be using 1 yard for this, okay, because I don't want it to be too stuffy for the girl. But if you really want it to be fluffy, you can use up to 2 yards so that the dress can really stand. That is depending on how you want it anyway. So this is it. I'll just cut this out. I'll just open it up. Like I said earlier, I don't want the dress to be too stuffy. I'm going to give this a good press. It's not really smooth. So I will be marking out from this waist. That is where I will be adding the hard net. So from the waist, I will just mark out 5 inches from this waist area. So I'm going to mark that all the way to the other end and I'll connect it. After connecting that, I will now cut out my hard net. For the hard net, I'll be using 6 inches after folding it. Okay, so let me connect this first. The cotton, this is the upper part, and this is the hard net, the satin, and every other thing. So please check the second part of this video so that you can see how I added this applique to the dress. So that is it for today. Please subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys soon.